The world below was saved. The silence that replaced the Grendel's shrieking was deep and profound. From orbit, the scars of their feeding were dark brown wounds on the green flesh of the planet. But the advance had stopped. On the Steadfast's bridge, the crew sat in exhausted disbelief. They watched the human armada move with quiet efficiency. Smaller shuttles darted from the warships, scanning the debris field, ensuring nothing remained active. A request came from the Mjolnir. Admiral Bay would meet the Elosian leadership. He requested Captain J be present. The shuttle flight down was different this time. Jay went with Admiral Bay in the Admiral's own craft, a sturdy, unadorned transport. Bei Jianghuan was a man of few visible years, but his eyes held the weight of long watches in deep space. He wore a simple black uniform with no medals. "You called, and we came," Bei said as they flew through the calm atmosphere. "That's how it works. The Concord has its rules. We have our promises." "They called us Deathworlders," Jay said, looking out at the passing forests. Bei gave a short, quiet laugh. "It's what we are, to them, to most of them. The galaxy is full of gardens, gentle places. We grew up in a storm. It makes us different. Not better, not worse, just strong in a way that frightens things that have never known a predator." They landed in the same clearing. The Elosians were gathered. Their soft light was dim, flickering with confusion and residual terror. The prelate stepped forward. He looked at Admiral Bay, then at Captain J, then at the armored human soldiers who fanned out to secure the area. The soldiers moved with a controlled alertness that seemed to scream of danger to the Elosians. "You have destroyed the Devourers," the prelate's translator voiced. "The song of their hunger is gone. We thank you for this." Admiral Bay gave a single, slow nod. "They were a threat. We removed it. But you have replaced one terror with another," the prelate said, the words spilling out. "Your ships. They are not made for travel. They are made for breaking. Your very presence here makes the air taste of iron and strife. You are the stories we tell our young ones about the dark between stars. You are the final answer." Jay wanted to protest, but Bay put a hand on his arm. The Admiral stepped closer to the prelate, his hands clasped behind his back. "Let me tell you a story," Bay said, his voice low. "On my world there is a creature, a small furry thing. It lives in gardens. It is very gentle. When a shadow passes over it, it freezes. It hopes the shadow does not see it. It is a good strategy for gentle shadows." He looked up at the peaceful sky. "The Grendels were not a gentle shadow. Your strategy of freezing did not work. Your song of distress was not for a fellow gardener. You were calling for something that knew how to fight shadows. You just didn't know what that looked like." The prelate's light pulsed. "And you? What are you?" "We are the ones who heard a scream in the night," Bay said. "We are the ones who came. We are not from a garden. We are from a place where every day is a contest. It made us hard. It also made us look out for each other. And now, it seems, we look out for those who cannot look out for themselves, even if they are afraid of us." He turned to one of his aides and gestured. The aide brought forward a small, solid metal post. At its top was a simple sphere with a softly blinking blue light. Bay took it and planted it firmly into the soil of the clearing. "This is a beacon," the Admiral explained. "It broadcasts a simple signal on a loop. It is a human signal. It says this world is under the protection of Sol. Any ship that approaches with hostile intent will have to answer to us." The Ilosians looked at the ugly metal thing in their beautiful soil. It was a foreign object. A scar. A promise. "You are claiming our world?" the prelate asked, fear returning. "No," Jay spoke up, finally understanding. "He is putting up a sign. a beware of dog sign. A dog is very big, and it lives far away, but it will come if you jump the fence. The prelate was silent for a long time, looking from the beacon to the humans, to the sky where their brutal ships waited. The truth was settling. Their salvation was not soft or gentle or kind in the way they knew. It was fierce, and it was terrifying, and it had come without being asked twice. "We must learn to live with this new song," the prelate said finally, his light dimming in acceptance. "It is not a melody, we know." Admiral Bay nodded again. "You will be safe. That is the melody. The tune is just a little louder than you're used to." The meeting ended. The human armada did not stay. There were no celebrations, no exchanges of gifts. The warships turned one by one and powered up their brutal jump drives. They tore those same white gashes in space and vanished, leaving only the Steadfast in orbit. From the bridge, Jay watched them go. He felt a mix of pride and a strange loneliness. They had seen a hidden part of their own people, a part kept in reserve for dark times. Una came to stand beside him. "They left fast. They have other fences to watch," Jay said. "And now we know we're not alone out here. Not just because of the Elosians. Because of them." On the planet, the Elosians slowly returned to their damaged world. They would heal their forests. They would sing their songs of growth. But now, in their main Horus habitat, a human beacon blinked its steady, rhythmless pulse. It was a reminder, a new fact of life. A week later, the Steadfast prepared to leave. Their job was done. The final act was Jay's order. "Replace the Elosian distress signal," he told Su Min, "with our beacon's carrier wave. On all standard Concord channels." The old, painful pulse of fear and despair was silenced. In its place, a new, strong signal emanated from the once silent expanse. It was clean data, a simple identifier, and a set of coordinates. And for any species advanced enough to listen, to decode the human language packet it contained, it carried a plain message, protected by soul. Approach with peace. It was not a request. It was a statement. The kind of statement that could only be made by those who knew, without a doubt, what they would do if peace was not chosen. The Steadfast turned toward home. Behind them, the garden world grew smaller, its blue and green hues once more serene. Above it, the new beacon shone like a steady, unblinking eye. Captain Kim Jay leaned back in his chair. The quiet of the bridge was familiar again, but it felt different. It was the quiet of a house after a storm has passed, knowing the walls are strong. They had gone out to explore a gentle universe. They had discovered it was not so gentle. And in doing so, they had found the fierce, hidden heart of their own. He looked at the star chart, the path home. "Let's go," he said. The ship jumped, leaving the silent expanse truly silent no more. The Steadfast was a shadow against the great darkness of the hive ship. It looked like a mouse trying to scare a bear. On the bridge, the air was tight with a quiet focus. Captain Jay watched the monster grow larger on the screen. "Taesiok, find me something that looks important, but isn't too armored." "A sensor cluster. A communication spire." "Found one," Taesiok said, highlighting a spiny growth on the edge of the ship. "Energy readings suggest it's a node for their swarm control. Target that. Una, plot the fastest pass. We get one shot before they react." The Steadfast's engines fired, pushing the small ship forward. For a few long seconds, they were just a speck approaching a mountain. Then, lights flared on the rocky surface of the hive ship. Dozens of small ports opened. Incoming fire. Una called out. Not energy weapons. Projectiles. Chunks of rock and metal, fired like cannonballs from the dark ages. They moved fast. A cloud of junk aimed to crush them. Evasive pattern delta. Jay ordered. The ship jerked to the side. A rock the size of a shuttle slammed past the viewport, so close they could see its rough edges. The Steadfast shook from the shockwave. "They're not using lasers. They're throwing garbage at us," Dehayan said, a hint of insult in his voice. "They don't need to be fancy. They just need to hit us once," Jay replied. "Hold course." Almost in range. The targeting computer beeped. The spinal laser on the Steadfast was a tool for cutting through ice and sampling bedrock. It was not a weapon of war, but it was all they had: fire. A thin, bright beam of red light lanced out from their ship. It struck the spiny growth on the hive ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the spine exploded in a shower of shattered rock and glowing green fluid. A deep, grinding roar vibrated through space, felt more than heard. The entire hive ship seemed to tremble. "Direct hit," Tay Seok yelled. "Get us out of here. Full power to engines." Jay shouted. The Steadfast turned sharply, its engines glowing white-hot. Behind them, the ports on the hive ship fired again, a storm of debris. But they were angry now. The shots were wilder, less accurate. The Steadfast weaved through the cloud, feeling impacts from tiny fragments against its hull. Then, they were clear, racing back toward the planet. "Damage report," Jay said. Breathing hard. Minor hull scoring on the aft section. No breaches. "Shields are holding, but they're not designed for this," Una reported. She looked at her screen. And it worked. The Grendel swarm on the surface has stopped advancing. They're confused. The hive ship is recalling some of them. They're coming into orbit. On the viewer, they could see the dark tide on the planet's surface pausing. Then, thousands of the creatures began to lift off, forming a buzzing cloud rising toward space. Toward them. "They're switching targets," Dehayan said. "We're the threat now." "Good," Jay said. "That was the plan. Now we run. We lead them on a chase. We hide in the planet's radiation belts. We make this last as long as we can." For hours, it became a terrible game. The Steadfast was faster in a straight line, but the Grendel swarm was endless. They would dart into the planet's shadow, go quiet, and wait. The swarm would buzz past, searching. Then the Steadfast would pop out, fire its laser at the hive ship from long range, a pinprick, but an annoying one, and run again. Each time, the response was angrier. The hive ship began to move, slowly, turning its massive bulk to face them. It was coming. "They're done playing," Una said, her voice tired. "They're bringing the main ship into the chase. We can't outrun that. Our power cells are draining fast from all the high-speed maneuvers." Jay looked at the clock. They had bought 18 hours. They needed 30 more. It was impossible. On the surface, the Elosian distress signal continued. It was a sound of pure sorrow now. Maybe someone heard the call. Kang Hana said softly from her science station. The old network. No one answered. Hope was a thin thing, and it was wearing out. Then Sumenet Combs sat up straight. "Captain, I'm getting a new signal. Not the Elosians. Not the Grendels. It's on one of the old SDN channels." A response. Jay's heart jumped. "Put it through." A voice filled the bridge. It was a human voice, deep, calm, and crackling with static from a very long distance. It spoke in Korean. "Omega signal received. Authentication confirmed. Stand by, Steadfast. The hammer is on the way. Ada, 15 seconds. 15 seconds?" Una said, "That's not possible. They'd have to be right on top of..." Space behind the Steadfast began to tear dot. It was not the smooth, blue ripple of a Concorde jump drive. This was a violent, white-hot rip in the fabric of reality. It looked like a wound in the universe. And from that wound, ships forced their way out. The first was a colossal wedge of dark gray metal, its surface scarred and pitted. It had no graceful lines. It was a floating fortress, covered in gun barrels. The name on its side read U.E.N.'s Melier. More followed. A smaller, sleek ship with a glowing green nose, U.E.N. Skorgan. A broad, flat vessel that looked like it was made for oceanic storms, E.N.'s Typhoon. Dozens of others. They were not pretty. They looked used. They looked hard. They were warships. Not for show. Not for diplomacy. They were tools built for one thing. Winning. The Grendel swarm, buzzing toward the Steadfast, stopped. The hive ship, moving slowly toward the planet, also seemed to pause. The entire battlefield froze for a single silent moment. A new voice came over the comm, clear and strong. Captain Kim Jae, this is Admiral Bei Zhenghwan of the Seoul Defense Fleet, aboard the Mjolnir. Sorry we're late. Traffic was hell. There was a dry humor in the voice. Now, if you'll please step aside. You've done the hard part. You found the problem. Jay couldn't speak. He just nodded at Su Min. Thank you, Admiral, Su Min transmitted, her voice shaking. The hive ship controls the swarm. The planet is the host. Understood, Admiral Bei said. His voice lost its humor. It became cold, professional. All vessels. Lock on to the hostile command ship. Weapons free. Let's introduce ourselves. What happened next was not a battle. It was an announcement. The Mjolnir fired first. It was not a laser. It was a massive kinetic projectile, a spear of solid tungsten moving at a fraction of light speed. It hit the hive ship and kept going, punching straight through the center, exploding out the other side in a shower of broken rock and green fire. Before the first explosion had finished, the Gorgon fired its beam. A stream of glowing green acid, designed to eat through the crust of Venus, splashed across the hive ship's surface. Where it touched, the rock boiled and melted away. The Typhoon launched missiles that swarmed like angry bees, each finding a port or a weak spot and detonating from within Dot in less than a minute. The massive, terrifying hive ship was shattered. It broke apart, its terrible grinding roar cut short, its pieces scattering into a new asteroid belt around the beautiful blue world. The Grendel swarm in orbit went dark. Their lights flickered out. They became just lifeless chunks of metal and chitin, floating aimlessly. On the planet below, the swarm on the ground simply stopped moving. They were machines without a signal. The silence that followed was heavier than any sound. Then, Admiral Bei's voice returned. Scans show no further orbital threats. Ground-based hostiles are inert. Good work, Steadfast. You held the line. Captain Jay finally found his voice. He looked at the armada of brutal, beautiful human ships on his screen. Admiral, we didn't know if anyone would come. Son, the Admiral's voice was quieter now. You sent an Omega. You said Deathworlders? That's the only call we all still listen for. It means one of our own has found something the nice, quiet galaxy can't handle. He paused. Now, let's see about the folks you were trying to save. The shuttle ride back to the Steadfast was silent. The view was still beautiful, the gentle forests, the soft glow of the Elosian structures. But the beauty felt like a lie now. Underneath it was the grinding, shrieking hunger of the Grendels, and a new, colder fear directed at them. Kong. Hana looked at her hands, as if seeing them for the first time. A Deathworlder, she whispered. Sergeant Daehyun checked his rifle's power cell. A habit. They're scared of our blood pressure and immune systems. Meanwhile, actual monsters are eating their planet. Their priorities are different. Captain J didn't answer. He watched the planet shrink on the viewer. The word echoed in his mind. Deathworlder. It wasn't a title he'd ever heard. Humanity's entry into the galactic concord had been smooth, if slow. They were seen as newcomers, a bit primitive, but polite. They had never been called monsters. The shuttle docked. The quiet of the Steadfast's hangar felt heavy. Back on the bridge, the mood had changed. The crew moved with less certainty. They had seen the fear in the Elosian's eyes. Not gratitude, but horror. Report, Jay said, taking his chair. First Officer Yuna's face was all business, pushing the strange meeting aside. The Grendel swarm is increasing its consumption rate. They've cleared 20% of the main continent's biomass. They're moving toward the largest Elosian chorus habitat. Estimated time before they reach it, 48 hours. Any structural weak points? Patterns? Jay asked. Kim Tae-seok at sensors zoomed in the display. They're like ants, but each one is armored. Our shuttle's scans suggest their outer shell would deflect small arms fire. Their energy signature is low. They don't have shields. They're just tough, and there are millions of them. Options, Jay said, though he already knew. Yuna listed them, her voice flat. 1. We evacuate who we can. Our shuttle can carry maybe 15 Elosians per trip. It would take weeks to move a meaningful number. The Grendels will not give us weeks. 2. Dae-Hyan said from the back. We fight. We have the shuttle's nose-mounted laser. We have sidearms and rifles. We could maybe dig a trench, hold a line for a few hours. It would be a gesture. A very loud, very final gesture. 3. Yuna finished. We do nothing. We record the extinction of the Ilos for the Concord database. We follow the rules and go home. Jay hated all the options. They were a science vessel. They were not made for this. They were made to study comets and name new types of gas cloud. They were not warriors. They were teachers. And right now, a teacher was being asked to stop a tank. Sir? Choi Soo-min said from the comm station. Her voice was odd. I've been monitoring the Grendel swarm's communication. It's not language. It's more like routing data, like a network. And the first found the source. The main viewer changed. It showed the edge of the star system. A new object had appeared. It was vast, shaped like a jagged rock, covered in spines and dark openings. It was bigger than the Steadfast, bigger than a city block. The hive ship, Soo-min said. It just dropped out of a jump. It's broadcasting the routing data. It's controlling them. It's the Queen. The bridge fell silent. The Grendels on the ground were an impossible problem. This thing in orbit was an extinction-level event. That's not a ship, Dae-Hyan murmured. That's a stomach with engines. Jay felt the deep cold settle in his chest. This was the end. They could not fight a fleet. They could not fight a swarm. They were going to watch a beautiful, gentle people die, and all they would be able to do was take notes. His eyes drifted to the mission log on a side screen. It displayed the ship's manifest, its classification. UENS Steadfast, Concord Allied Survey Vessel. And below it, the home port designation. Sol System, Earth.Deathworld. An idea, wild and desperate, clicked in his mind. It was a stupid idea. It was against every protocol. It was a shout into a void even deeper than the silent expanse. Yuna, Jay said, his voice quiet. Access the historical database. The old fleet logs. From before the Concord. From when we first left Sol. Yuna frowned. Captain, those are archives. 200-year-old protocols. They're obsolete. Open them, Jay said, sitting up straight. Search for emergency broadcast channels. Not the Concorde's diplomatic bands. The old ones? The military ones. The ones they called the Soul Defense Network. The crew looked at him, confused. But Yuna's hands flew over her console. Files opened, covered in old Earth military codes. I have them. They're dormant. They were built for a threat that never came. A human-only network, in case we found something hostile. Jay stood up. We have found something hostile, and we are not enough. He walked to the center of the bridge. Compose a message. Tight beam burst. Not to Concorde Central. Routed through the old network channels. Use the highest priority. Omega level. What's the message, sir? Su-Min asked. Her hands ready. Jay took a deep breath. He thought of the Elosian sphere, their beautiful, dying world. He thought of Earth, with its storms and its germs and its tough, stubborn people. Make the subject line. Deathworlders needed. He paused. And the message body. Just this. Bring the hammer. For a moment, no one moved. It sounded like madness. They were calling for help on a network no one might be listening to, using a code word from a forgotten age. Captain, Yuna said carefully, the odds that anyone is monitoring that channel are better than the odds we can save this world with a shuttle laser. Jay finished. Send it. On repeat. Broadcast on every old military frequency we have. Aim it roughly toward where we think Soul is. And then, we buy them time. They high and stepped forward. How? We get the Grendel's attention, Jay said, a plan forming. The hive ship is the brain. We are a fly. A very annoying fly. We hit the hive ship. We make it look at us, not the planet. We make it waste time. That is a suicide mission, Yuna stated. It's a stalling mission, Jay corrected. We don't have to win. We just have to be a problem they can't ignore for 48 hours. We run. We hide. We hit them again. We are humans. We are from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We are good at surviving. He saw the doubt in their eyes. Then slowly he saw it change. Kang Hana nodded. Kim Tae-seok set his jaw. Sergeant Dae Hyan actually smiled, a thin, hard smile. A fly with a stinger, Dae Hyan said. A very small stinger, Yuna said. But she turned to her station. I'll plot an attack run. Hit and fade. Target their sensor spines. Try to blind them. Good, Jay said. He looked at Su-Min. Send the signal. Su-Min pressed a button. A single line of text flashed on her screen. Transmission sent. Omega priority. SDN. Channel active. They had thrown a bottle into a cosmic ocean, hoping someone was still watching the shore. All right, Captain Kim Jae said, buckling himself into his command chair. Let's go be annoying. Helm, take us toward the hive ship. Slow and steady. Let them see us coming. Let them think we're stupid. The Steadfast turned, a small, sleek fish pointing itself at a mountain of teeth. Below them, the beautiful world glowed, its death cry still echoing silently through the void. Above them, the monstrous hive ship hung in the darkness, waiting, and somewhere in the vast, quiet space between, a simple, old-fashioned distress call raced along forgotten paths, carrying two words that were both a plea and a promise. Bring the hammer. The jump was rough. The space inside the silent expanse was not calm. It felt twisted, like flying through a storm you could not see. The Steadfast shook hard as it fell back into normal space. Alarms beeped, then went quiet as systems recovered. Captain J held onto his chair. Report. All systems green, Yuna said, her voice tight. Jump was within safety margins. Just bumpy. Where are we? Kim Tae-seok at the sensor station worked quickly. His screen was a mess of strange readings. Confirmed. We are at the source coordinates of the distress signal. There's a planetary system. One world in the life zone. Put it on screen, Jay ordered. The main viewer flickered to life. A planet filled the view. It was not what any of them expected. There were no dark, rocky wastes. No signs of a war zone. It was beautiful. A world of deep blues and lush greens swirled under soft white clouds. It looked peaceful. It looked like a garden. That's not right, Sergeant Dae-hyun said from the back of the bridge. That signal came from a nightmare. This looks like a painting. The signal is still broadcasting, Su-ming confirmed. Stronger now. It's definitely from the surface. The northern continent. Jay studied the world. No orbital stations. No debris. No energy signatures from weapons or engines. Just the steady, terrible cry for help from a planet that seemed to have no problems. Scans for ships? For structures? He asked. Tae-seok shook his head. Nothing in orbit. Surface scans are difficult. There's a lot of electromagnetic interference from the plant life, I think. But I'm reading concentrated energy patterns down there. Not machines. Something else. Organic, maybe. Prepare the shuttle, Jay decided. Yuna, you're with me. Dae-hyun, bring one of your team. And let's get Kang Hana up here. If this is a biological puzzle, I want our biologists to see it. Soon, the shuttle Curiosity detached from the Steadfast. Jay piloted. Yuna sat beside him, watching the sensors. In the back, Sergeant Dae-hyun and Specialist Park Ji-ho checked their gear. They wore light tactical suits and carried standard rifles. Kang Hana, the biologist, sat between them, her eyes wide as she looked at the view. The atmospheric mix is perfect, Hana said, reading her tablet. Oxygen is a little high, rich in organic compounds. This isn't just habitable. It's ideal. It's a paradise world. Then why is someone screaming? Dae-hyun muttered. The shuttle cut through the upper atmosphere. The ride was smooth. They flew over an ocean, then a coastline. A forest spread out below them, but it was like no forest on Earth. The trees were tall and slender, with leaves that seemed to shimmer with soft light. The colors were gentle blues and purples. The distress signal guided them. It led to a clearing in the forest. In the middle of the clearing was a structure. It was not built. It was grown. Great arches of living wood, curved together, woven with glowing vines. It looked like a cathedral made by trees, and there were beings. They stood in a group, their forms slender and tall. Their skin had a soft, pearly glow. They seemed to be made of gentle light and quiet music. As the shuttle landed, Jay saw they had large, dark eyes that held no white, only deep, starry black. They were beautiful, and they looked utterly terrified. The humans stepped out. The air was warm and sweet. The sound of the forest was a low, harmonic hum. The distress signal was a physical vibration in the air here, a painful crack in the beautiful music. One of the beings stepped forward. It was slightly taller than the others. Its glow pulsed in a slow rhythm. It made a sound, a series of fluting notes that rose and fell. A small device on its form flickered. A voice came from Jay's wrist comb. The translation software was working, its tone flat and digital. You came. You heard the song of our end. I am Captain Kim Jae of the United Earth Nations. We heard your distress signal. We came to help. The being Jay decided to think of it as a he, from the translator's tone tilted his head. Help, a small word for a vast hope. I am a prelate of the Ilos. We are the chorus of this world. And we are being unmade. What is attacking you? Una asked Dot before the prelate could answer. A new sound ripped through the clearing. It was a harsh, metallic shrieking, far away, but coming closer fast. The Elosians flinched, their light dimming with fear. "Come," the prelate said, moving quickly towards the organic structure. "The swarm harvests the western grove. You must see to understand." Inside the grown cathedral, the walls showed images, not screens, but living light on the wood. The prelate gestured, and a section of the wall showed a view from high above. It showed the edge of the forest. And something was moving Dot. It was a tide of black and bronze. Machines? Animals? It was hard to tell. They were like six-legged insects, but each was the size of a small car. They had sharp, cutting limbs and maws that spun like drills. They moved with horrible speed, slicing through the beautiful trees, grinding them into pulp and consuming them. They left only bare, gray dirt behind. "The Grendels," the prelate said, the name a hiss of grief from the translator. "They come from the cold dark between stars. They find a world that sings with life. They consume the song. They leave only silence. They have eaten 3 sister worlds of our colony. Now they are here. We have no weapons. Our song is for growth, for harmony. It cannot cut or burn." Jay watched the horrible, efficient destruction. It was like watching locusts, but locusts made of metal and hungry for everything. "We have some weapons on our ship," Daehyun said, his face grim. "But not enough for that. There are thousands." "Our only hope was the song of distress," the prelate said. "A plea to the greater galaxy we believed must exist. A hope that someone stronger, would hear." He looked at the humans, his dark eyes moving over their forms, their suits, their weapons. Then he focused on Kang Hana, who was taking scans with a small device. The device beeped. Hannah looked at it, confused. The prelate's glow flickered violently. He took a step back. The other Elosians did the same, a wave of movement away from the humans. "What is wrong?" Jay asked. "You." The prelate's translated voice was filled with a new kind of fear. Not the fear of the Grendels. This was deeper, more primal. "Your biological signature. It is loud. It screams of conflict. Your bodies are factories of violence. Your cells fight themselves and win. Your world. Your whole world." The readings. Hannah looked up from her scanner. "It's reading Earth's baseline from my medical files. For comparison." "What's the problem?" The prelate stared at Jay. "Your gravity. Your atmospheric pressure. The range of your temperatures. The predators in your biosphere. The diseases. The constant, endless competition." The translator seemed to struggle. "Your planet is a Class 12 extreme hazard biosphere. A death world?" The word hung in the air. "You," the prelate said, his light dimming to a fearful shimmer, "are Deathworlders. Your very presence. It is a shock to the air. Your quiet is a lie. You are beings of fury, wrapped in skin. How can you live on such a forge of pain?" Jay looked at his own hands. He thought of Earth, of storms, of winters, of lions and sharks and bacteria. He had never thought of it as strange. It was just home. To hear it described like a nightmare was unsettling. "We adapt," Jay said finally. The prelate shivered. "You answered a cry for help. But you are the thing every starfaring race whispers about in warnings. You are the monster from the dark. And now you are here." Outside, the shrieking of the Grendels grew louder. The ground trembled with the distant chewing of a world being eaten alive. And in the grown cathedral, the hopeful rescuers stood, suddenly seen not as saviors, but as a different kind of terror. The bridge of the United Earth Nations ship Steadfast was quiet, a hum of machines and focused thought. Captain Kim Jae leaned over the main display, his finger tracing a line through a star chart. It was all empty space and old data. Next to him, First Officer Park Yuna watched, her eyes sharp. "Another day, another void," Jay said, his voice calm. He was a man built for patience, his face showing the lines of long thought more than worry. "The Concord survey says this sector is inert," Yuna replied. She tapped a screen. "No mineral wealth. No strategic value. That's why they gave it to a science ship." Jay smiled a little. "They call it mapping the quiet places. I think it means they forgot we exist." Behind them, the crew worked. At the comms station, Choi Soo-min listened to the usual cosmic noise, the whisper of stars, the echo of dead pulsars. Sergeant Lee Dae-hyun stood near the door, his posture relaxed, but his eyes always moving. He and his two-person security team felt out of place on a ship of scientists, like tools waiting for a job that never came. A soft chime broke the quiet. It came from Soo-min's station. She tilted her head, her hands moving quickly over the controls. The chime sounded again, louder, a raw pulse of sound that felt wrong in the ordered quiet of the bridge. "Captain," Soo-min said, her usual calm gone. "I'm receiving a high-gain subspace burst. It's not in any Concord codex. It's not a pattern." Jay straightened up. "Source?" "Triangulating." Her screen flashed. "It's coming from the silent expanse. Bearing 092, Mark 15. Deep range." A cold feeling settled on the bridge. The silent expanse. Every spacer knew the name. It was a blank spot on the galactic maps, a place the young galactic Concord politely avoided. Stories said it was empty. Other, older stories whispered different things of lost ships and signals that stopped suddenly. "Put it through," Jay ordered. The sound that filled the bridge was not made of words. It was a low, throbbing pulse, like a pained heart. Beneath it was a screech of tearing metal and a high, desperate warble. It repeated, the same 5-second burst, over and over, no one spoke. The meaning was clear. It did not need translation. Catastrophe. Fear. A scream for help. Is it automated? A beacon? Yuna asked. Her voice low. Su-min shook her head. The modulation is organic. There's variance in the distress wail. This is a live broadcast. Someone is screaming into the dark right now. Sergeant Dae-hyun stepped forward. "How old is the signal?" "Based on subspace decay, less than 6 hours old," Soo-min answered. J walked to the main viewer. The star field stared back, innocent and cold. The silent expanse was a black blotch on the edge of the display. Concord Standing Order 47 was clear. Any distress signal from an uncharted or prescribed zone must be reported to Sector Command immediately. No exceptions. Evaluation by committee. Deployment by protocol. The process took weeks, sometimes months. A child could understand what that signal meant. There were no weeks left. "Options, First Officer?" Jay asked, his eyes still on the stars. Yuna took a deep breath. "By the book, sir? We record the signal, send a flash burst to Concord Central, and hold position. We are a Class 2 survey vessel. Our mandate is observation, not intervention. The silent expanse is prescribed for a reason. We don't know what's in there. We know someone is dying in there," Jay said softly. "We do," Yuna agreed. "And if we go in, we might die with them. Our weapons are for breaking ice on asteroids. Our shields are for radiation storms. We are not a warship." From his post, Dayan spoke. "Whoever sent that, they're not winning their fight. The fear in that signal. It's at the end. They've run out of options." Jay turned from the viewer. He looked at his crew. Soo-min, her hands poised over the comms. ready to send the signal that would doom the unknown callers to a bureaucratic death. Daehyun, a soldier without a battle. Yuna, brilliant and cautious, holding the weight of the rules. Concord believes we are alone out here, Jay said. They believe all intelligent life will be reasonable. Like them, peaceful, they make rules for a quiet galaxy. He pointed to the speaker, where the pained pulse still echoed. That is not a quiet galaxy. That is the sound of a neighbor's house burning down. He walked to his command chair, but did not sit. We are humanity's eyes out here. We chose to leave our world and look into the dark. Why did we do that? No one answered. We did it to find out what else is here, Jay said, answering his own question. And now something has found us. It is not sending a formal request. It is screaming for its life. If we turn away, we are not being cautious. We are being cowards. We are saying the rules of our paperwork are more important than the plea of a living soul. The bridge was silent except for the awful, repeating pulse. Yuna looked at the star chart, then at the signal's origin point. The navigation risks are extreme. No reliable beacons. Gravitational anomalies are probable. Chart a best guess course, Jay said, his decision settling into his voice. Maximum safe jump distance. We go in steps. And when we get there, sir? Daehyun asked. What's the plan? We will see what we see, Jay said, finally sitting in his chair. We will assess, and we will do what we can, because we are the only ones who heard the cry. He looked at Su Min. Do not send the signal to Concord. Not yet. Record everything. Store it. He turned to Yuna. Plot the jump. Yuna held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. A flicker of resolve replaced the worry in her eyes. Aye, Captain. Plotting the jump. The mood on the bridge changed. The quiet routine was gone. A new tension took its place, a humming energy. Crew members moved with new purpose. The Steadfast was no longer drifting. It had a destination. J watched as the coordinates were entered. The ship's engines, usually used for gentle corrections, began a deep, powerful thrum. The star field on the viewer shifted as the ship turned toward the unknown. We are answering the call, Jay said, mostly to himself. The jump drive activated. Space outside the windows seemed to stretch and twist. The stars became lines of light. With a final, shuddering lurch, the Eowyn Steadfast, a small ship of scientists from a world its crew simply called home, vanished from the safe. Mapped void. It plunged into the silent dark, chasing a scream.